I got the perfect guy to break down what went on during the second and third round. It's Clark Judge, NFL columnist from CBSSports.com. Clark, I know it's been a long couple of days. Weekend's almost over. You still got rounds 4 through 7. But let me start with the big story since you're joining us from New York. Geno Smith seems like a value selection for the Jets, but he's also a bit of a project in terms of never having been under center, a no-huddle offense coming to the Jets who are now going to run Marty Morningwing's West Coast offensive system. Give me your thoughts on Geno Smith to the Jets and what it means to this franchise.
Well, what it means is another circus. This is Tim Tebow times 10. Geno Smith's coming in here not to compete with Mark Sanchez. He's coming here to take his job. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Mark Sanchez is on the way out. And I think people were surprised when that pick was made. The Jets fans at Radio City Music Hall actually cheered it, which shows you what they think of Mark Sanchez. They want him out as well. So we've got a new offensive coordinator in here, and I think he looked at Mark Sanchez and said, I've got to get better. Thinks he can do that with Geno Smith, but you're right. He's a project, and there are a lot of teams that didn't like him. The Jets are willing to roll the dice because they need to do something, anything, to get this offense started. But my question is, what does he do for playmakers? He really doesn't have many around him.
Hey, the Chargers trade up to get Manti Te'o. Got to ask you about that. He seems to fit into that 3-4 defense because he can just stay in the middle where he belongs. Your take on it?
Yeah, he can, and they need to improve that defense. It's got a good inside linebacker in Butler, but they need more. I think they're going to be the inevitable comparisons with Junior Seau, and that's sort of unfortunate for Te'o because that's an awfully tough person, a player to live up to. Junior Seau was a legend in San Diego. I covered him. I know what he's like down there. He was the face of the franchise. Manti Te'o can be as well, but he's got some things to overcome, and I'm not talking about off the field. I'm talking about that last game against Alabama. He's got to demonstrate that he's not the player who got manhandled in that game. Now, of course, a lot of his teammates got manhandled as well, but Te'o's got to prove he's better than that. He's the player who showed up in all but that game, and he's got an opportunity in San Diego, and I think it's to his advantage to be out of the spotlight, whereas Geno Smith's going to be under the spotlight here in New York.
Perfect segue for us. Speaking of that national championship game, the Alabama offensive line obviously dominated a very good defensive line from Notre Dame, but it also was helped by Eddie Lacy. But Eddie Lacy falls all the way to pick 61 in the second round for the Green Bay Packers, which appears to be good news for the Green Bay Packers. Why was Eddie Lacy, who was so well regarded on some levels before the draft, why was he still available so late in the second round?
Well, it's one word, medical. Teams were scared off about this nagging hamstring injury. A lot of teams had him as a borderline pass-fail. There was a question, at least reportedly a question, about his lack of passion for the game, especially at the next level. I talked to some people who said they really didn't hear that, but certainly the medical was the issue with him. And so teams got scared off by him. And I think what you're seeing is when you mention the offensive lineman, there's a lot more regard for them than there was for the guy behind them. Basically what they're telling you is we value that offensive line. That's why we think he got those yards. Lacy was just not sure is worth the gamble. But to me, at 61, it's a low-risk pick for Green Bay. They've got nothing to lose. You protect your quarterback, and they just invest a ton of money in Aaron Rodgers. You can protect him with your offensive line, and or you can protect him with a good running game, and they don't have a good running game. At 61, why not take a gamble on Eddie Lacy? He was the only back for the first-round grade, and he fell because of this medical issue. Hey, if it clears up, they may have gotten themselves a bargain.
Clark, we knew that the quarterbacks weren't that strong in this year's draft, but Matt Barkley doesn't get picked up in the first 3 rounds. Does that surprise you, and what's the reason for that?
It's astonishing. Honestly, it's astonishing to me. I thought he might go in the bottom of the first, top of the second. Really expected the top of the second to clear out some people here, Barkley being one, Geno Smith another. I thought Ryan Nassib might go in the top of the third. Nassib's still out there, too, and his own coach, Syracuse coach Doug Marrone, passed on him. And so now you look at Matt Barkley, he's still out there. And I think it's remarkable when you think of a year ago. Had he come out a year ago, he wasn't going to be Andrew Luck, he wasn't going to be RG3, but he wouldn't have been that far behind. And now you look at him, he's still on the board with the 4th round coming up. He cost himself a lot of money, certainly has a lot to prove, but I think this is a guy who is somebody I'd love to take a chance on because I think he's a guy who could take a challenge like that and run with it. I think Matt Barkley is a potential starter. He certainly is going to have to prove that, but there are a lot of teams telling you, I don't think he can do it. Hey, he's got something to demonstrate now, and more power to him. I like Matt Barkley. He's got a chance now to really do what Aaron Rodgers did in 2005 and say, hey, all you guys who passed on me, I'm going to prove you wrong.